because that will be on the Pollinate platform if you'd like to view it. So just again for the recording, welcome everyone to the second community practice webinar for building your networks. And I will pass it on over to Jody.
So I think I pass it on to Christy, the moderator.
Yeah, for sure. So I should have jumped in there, Renata. Welcome, everybody. We are extremely excited to have everybody with us today. This is the second Women for Nature Community of Practice webinar for 2023. If you missed the first one, there is a recording available to you, and we'll talk about where you can get that at the end of the session. I'm Christy Pettit. I work with Pollinate Networks, and I have the privilege of walking alongside Jody and the other steering committee members to bring you this fabulous content. So really excited to be here, excited to always walk alongside this program. We have some fabulous panelists, Nicole Antoine, Joanna Kerr, and Zahra Saigar, who we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. We'll get an opportunity to introduce you. And today's topic, in case you have gotten lost in the schedule, is around building your networks. And this very important topic is something that we often have our Women for Nature asking for more information on. So today is the day. And I'm going to move it on over to Jody Joy, who is our executive sponsor for this whole show and shebang, and get her to give some introductions on behalf of Nature Canada.
Hello and welcome everyone as we come together for this exciting virtual webinar. I'd like to start by welcoming everyone and acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we're on today. We acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home and have been traditionally stewarded by our Indigenous partners. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Please feel free to write in the chat to acknowledge where you're listening from today. We do this to affirm our commitment and responsibility for reconciliation and our own understanding of Indigenous peoples and their cultures. As well, I'd like to take an opportunity to thank our sponsors, the Chalkers Foundation, our W&Co Women for Nature donors, and of course, Pollinate Networks for allowing us the opportunity to host the Leadership Webinar Series. And a special thanks to our other volunteer advisors on our steering committee, Nora Livingston, Yvonne McKinnon, and Gowri Srinivasan. And now I'll pass it back to Christy, who will introduce today's panelists.
Yes, so we're excited to have our three panelists. I'm going to ask questions of each of them and ask you panelists to layer on with each other. The hour will go very quickly. To those who are joining as audience members, please, the best way probably to get a question answered is to put it in the chat. If we have extra time at the end, we can definitely sort of take some comments and shows of hands. But if you have things that are popping up for you along the way, by all means, put them in the chat. So I would like to introduce our fabulous panel members. First of all, we have Nicole Antoine. And Nicole is co-founder and CEO of 4 Brown Girls, a not-for-profit. And Nicole, I'm excited about your deep marketing passion. That sounds amazing. And you've been helping brands worldwide to leave their mark while fostering change. This is the kind of change we want to see in the world, as people who are doing good and telling people about how they're doing good. And with over a decade of experience, she now specializes in experiential marketing and ensuring that clients are cared for appropriately. So Nicole, I think your expertise on networking is going to go a long way with us for sure.
Thank you.
Definitely looking forward to what you would say about yourself too. So feel free to give us a little bit more about you as we get going. Joanna Kerr is now the president and CEO of MakeWay. She's also led Greenpeace, ActionAid International, and the Association for Women's Rights in Development, working all over the world. So Joanna, you must have a lot of air miles to your name for sure. And Joanna and I shared some a little bit of getting stuck in the rain today. So we were both shaking out our curls before we got going here. But nonetheless, Joanna has several decades of experience. Joanna, we're looking forward to sharing in your experience. A feminist, environmentalist, human rights activist, executive coach, committed to building bridges across communities, issues, and ways of working. You sound like our kind of people, Joanna, and can't wait to hear from you for sure. And then finally, we have Zahra Saigar, a certified executive and leadership coach. So Zahra, also really looking forward to your perspective and how we can prepare ourselves to be good networkers. You operate Fireflies Leadership Coaching. Love that Fireflies title or name. That's really cool. And your clients cover an expansive range of industries, functions, and levels. And you are helping empower women to create the best of themselves. So I think we all want that, Zahra. So we'll be definitely looking forward to hearing from you about that as we move forward. So without further ado, I want to jump in and get started with our questions. So we have actually scripted a few questions just to keep us organized. And panelists, feel free to answer the ones that are most relevant to you. Some of them may be bang on what you do, and some of them may be more peripheral, but we've tried to sort of give each of you something to really share and dig in on for sure. We really want to look at, in today's environment where we have remote and hybrid and all of these new ways of working are suddenly upon us. The pandemic was quite a gateway to all these different ways that people interact now. And we want to consider, how important it is to connect with other people, both in person and in other ways, especially early in a career or when we're new to an organization. So Nicole, I'm going to ask you to jump in first and really give us a little bit of a sense of, how do you see the importance of connection given today's environment? I mean, it's always been important. What's it looking like now from your perspective? So I'll ask you to comment first, Nicole.
I have a very unique trajectory in the sense that on the bridge of COVID, I was unemployed for the first time ever in my life. So I had to think quickly, really kind of re-strategize of what my next move was going to be. And thankfully, because of my vast network, I was able to pick up some freelancing jobs and really start my business, my experiential marketing company from being unemployed from COVID. So with that in mind, it was really important for me to connect with people, and I didn't have the luxury of connecting in person. That was a plus in my industry and field, because I was able to now connect with clients that were outside of my immediate let's say distance scope, you know what I mean? So I'm from Montreal. So usually my client scope, my reach would be Montreal of who I can serve. But COVID really opened up this gateway, this gateway to connecting with clients that are further. Right. So I started developing a network in Ottawa, started developing a network in Toronto. So I was really able to scale my business thanks to this idea of this hybrid connection and virtual connection. As things started opening up and people wanting to kind of meet in person, I really started evaluating what the ROI of a conversation is. So the ROI, marketing terms, return on investment. So what is the return on investment of this conversation? So sometimes you don't really know where a conversation is going to bring you, and you're just kind of going in there open-minded and seeing what comes and seeing how you guys can preemptively connect some dots and so forth. But what's interesting in evaluating the importance of a conversation, it allows you to kind of see if this is someone that you think that the connection, that personal connection, will give you the edge to convert or get a yes on a certain idea. And if it's a new relationship, it gives you the opportunity to kind of have that conversation in the comfort of your own home or at a cafe and so forth. So it's really evaluating that and seeing and really seeing and conceptualizing your time. You know what I mean? So when we're thinking about the cost of a program, or the cost, your inherent cost, sorry, of you giving a service and so forth, you have to factor in your time. So if you're actually going to take the time to see someone in person, you've already have conceptualized and mitigated what is what you want to get out of it, right? What is your end return? What are you going to convert? So that's how I really kind of use this kind of hybrid connection to my benefit, and really analyzing when I'm pulling the trigger in jumping on an hour flight to go to Toronto to have that conversation in person, because I know that output is going to give me the highest return for myself, for my professional growth, for my business, and so forth. So that's how I would answer that question. If anyone has any follow-up questions that they want me to ask, I can be more than happy to take it on.
Wonderful answer. Thank you so much, Nicole. I really like, and yes, please do put some things in the chat along with your land acknowledgement, any questions around this. This ROI of conversations is a really interesting place to take us right off the bat, Nicole, because we start thinking about discernment as part of our networking chops, or part of our networking skill set. We want quality over quantity because we are finite beings. We can only, be in so many places at one time. So this is a really thinking about your time as a resource in all of this. And quality over quantity is really, really interesting. I want to ask Joanna and Zahra if you have additional thoughts to add to what Nicole has started us off with this question. So just opening it up to either one of the other panelists. Do you want to add anything?
Zahra, do you want to go ahead? I can go ahead.
Go ahead, Joanna. I'll go after you. Thanks.
The reason my hair is so messy is because I did calculate the ROI to bike across Toronto to meet face to face with someone that I'd met many, many times on a Zoom. And I'm feeling the need more than ever for us to be able to meet each other as humans. And so making the effort to actually, so I was meeting with a young woman who works inside a family office, does private philanthropy. She's got a tough job. It's awkward for her, the way she can talk about her work. We would not have had the same conversation if we'd been meeting over Zoom, right? We both were wet. The place we went was under construction. We had to find another cafe, right? And we finally got ourselves dried off and met as humans and really kind of talked about our personal lives in a way that I don't think we would have. I think like many of us who are in the change-making business, many of us feel like change does happen at the speed of trust. And so trust building is something that where you do need to connect with people at a heart and a not just around, some of the transactional stuff, but really around kind of the heart connection. So I'm right now as determined as possible after COVID to try to spend as much time as I possibly can to meet new people face to face, recognizing that you can just go that level deeper. But picking on Nicole's points about how do you discern who and when and why to do it. For me, it's like, is this a person I want to know better in order to have a more trusting relationship and to expand the depth of how we might potentially work together? That's when I want to meet with them face to face.
Awesome. Yes, I like that too, Jody. Change happens at the speed of trust. It's true. And while it's so cool that we can do all these things online, it is a very different experience to be live with people. So I like what you said, Johanna, about, calculating that ROI to be live in those situations where we want to build trust. We want to go deeper. Zahra, what about you? What would you say in terms of things that you could add to this conversation?
Sure. I'm actually going to highlight a few points already made because they're really important to me as well. And I would have mentioned them. One being intentional about what your purpose or what your aim is. And that's the ROI conversation that's already brought up. I think of it as, are you trying to skip stones on the surface of a lake and try to make as many connections? Or do you want the stone to drop and go deep with that one person? And so that's kind of how I approach the conversations, just so I have my mindset on, is this a moment where I'm trying to collect lots of names to follow up with later on? Or do I really want to go deep? And it's really important right now that as we're opening back up and going back into in-person times, and some folks are working hybrid, to make use of that time when we're together. So if that means making sure that you have somebody to share lunch with when you are in the office, then do that, or take a walk with, or grab a coffee with. Make sure you use your time when you are in community physically, to connect with folks for those lunchtime conversations, for those hallway conversations that we missed so deeply, even though work was still happening just fine over Zoom. The human cost that we paid around connection was real. And so trying to bring that back up to a good place is really important. And I think it can happen in a whole host of different ways. I've seen teams that actually co-work over Zoom. And so they turn on Zoom and all do their own work and are able to chit chat as they're working, if that's to mimic the environment of sitting in an office and working together around cubicles. And so there are a lot of different ways to do this. And I think finding your own to create those deep connections is really important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Really like that idea, Zahra. Like, just again, I think there's a theme coming through this of being pretty deliberate at this point, and really thinking through how you want it to look and feel as you continue to network. So I see some great questions in the chat, and we will thread those in for sure. Question number 2 is, Joanna, I'm going to start with you, and let's just talk about, in practical terms, what are the benefits that you would have, really noted in your career that came from cultivating your network? So could you talk a little bit about that, Joanna, and what examples you have of how you've done that over time?
Yeah, I can speak directly to an example. I was straight out of university and I was hired by a think tank in Ottawa called the North-South Institute. And I was brought in as a researcher to start building a program on gender and development. I didn't know anybody in Ottawa. This was my first job. I see somebody like, how do you overcome anxiety and imposter syndrome? It's like, what am I doing here? And I brazenly started a monthly gathering called The Gathering, because it was gender and development. So The Gathering, and it was a potluck, and it would go from house to house, and it was intergenerational, it was international. Being in Ottawa, it was, there was often many interesting people coming to town, and so we'd have all these great speakers. That thing went on for years, long after I left. But I have to tell you, it was probably the smartest thing I did professionally, because I ended up meeting so many people through it, and people that I have gone on to have, working relationships with years and years later. But it was a form of community. Nobody was the expert. It was just simply a potluck where we were facilitating a conversation. And this was pre-email. You have to know, this was 1991. I had a piece of paper that I put through a fax machine, and I would I would stand at the fax machine once a month to fax kind of who the speaker was and who was hosting the potluck. So pre-LinkedIn, pre all of that. And we were having this monthly thing. Sometimes 5 people would show up. Sometimes 40 people would show up, but it formed a community, and that network carried on supporting one another. So I just say, start wherever. And of course I was an imposter. I was completely new to the whole scene. But everybody's trying to learn, and we're all trying to unlearn things as well. So to facilitate something like that it was joy filled, it was hummus filled. My God, we ate so much bloody hummus. But it was just
bring hummus.
Exactly. But it was just a really great way to connecting. So I thought I'd start with that example.
I love that. And Gary said in the chat, good food helps. It does. It really does. If you're able to meet live, that can definitely be something important. So what about the other panelists? Tell us a little bit about things that you learned from building, what's happened in your career due to you taking the time or having a focus on building up your network. So Zahra, do you want to go ahead and tackle this?
Sure. And my example is the direct opposite of Joanna's, because fresh out of school, I didn't invest my time and effort and energy into creating connections and networking. I thought my good work would speak for itself, and I kind of forgot that I was the voice. And so I didn't do any of the connections and networking. I just did my work, went to work, and that was it. I made social connections, but nothing that would translate professionally. So a couple of years down the line, when I was ready to move on to a different role within the organization, it was a vast organization, I spent a good year diligently checking the job postings, applying, being really thoughtful about the cover letters and the resumes I was submitting. And at the end of a year, I had had one interview and 0 offers. And I was frustrated, and I went to my mentor internally who was a mentor of mine, and I spoke with her about it, and I said, "What is going on?" And what she said to me still rings true in my ears all the time. 2 things. 1, people don't know you. And 2, they don't know what you want. I hadn't put in the effort to allow people to get to know me. I had 0 visibility within the organization. And more importantly, I didn't go around telling people what I really wanted. The more equipped your network is with your information, the more they can actually be of service to you. And that's true all the way around. And since then, now that I've made the investment into building connections and networks, the benefits that I've reaped are far reaching. Everything from obviously opportunities for advancement, access to information. I find this to be a low burner, but a good one. A lot of information that's really important gets passed along informally in these organizations. And so the more plugged in you are, the more updated you get to stay. Increased visibility, of course, I already spoke to that. And my next one is belonging. We don't always talk about this one, but especially after having gone through the pandemic phase, it's really important to have a sense of belonging and knowing that you have a support system around you, whether it's professionally, socially, however. And the more you have folks that know you, know what you want, know what's important to you, the more emotionally supported you'll feel. And that's when you do your best work. That's when creativity really comes to shine.
Mm-hmm.
And the last bit I'll touch on is mentorship. I call mine my personal Zahra's board of directors. I have my own that I've set up for myself. And I know that when I need a strategic help, I go to a certain person. When I need guidance, I go to a certain person. When I need somebody to look over a talk that I'm giving, I have somebody who's a master speaker. And I even have somebody who's my cheerleader and she hypes me up before I go into places. And so it's really important to create all the things that you need around you through people. And so create your entourage, board of directors, whatever you want to call it, but set yourself up.
Love that. Really love that. And I love that idea that, you know, your good work is important, but it needs a voice, and you are the voice. People are very busy focusing on what they're focusing on and not necessarily noticing all the fabulous things you're doing unless you point them out. And I think there is a balance there between, you know, being overly look at me, look at me, look at me, and having a healthy balance with, you know, the exchange with people around that, for sure. Yeah. What about you, Joanna? Sorry, did we already hear from you, Joanna? We did. So what about Nicole? Nicole, how would you say that benefits have come from your networking that you've been doing?
Definitely realizing that my network is my net worth. That's something that came really true to me when I was transitioning from an employee to an employer. So it's important when you're, you know, being a Black woman, there is an additional layer when it comes to this idea of belonging that you eloquently spoke on, Zahra. This idea of belonging, this idea of feeling like an imposter, this idea of kind of breaking down all of the systemic barriers that are put in front of you, despite like your talent, your accolades, your actual worth. You know what I mean? Who sets your worth? You know what I mean? So there's all of these different barriers when it comes to understanding how to navigate and grow your network. A lot of things that I do is about advancing this idea of equity in the workspace, and not in a performative way. You know, post BLM, everyone's like equity, diversity, but do they really understand what it means? What are the actionable steps that people are taking? So as I kind of fell deeper into my passion and got a better understanding of who I was, and being just authentic, unapologetic, but also understanding and realizing that I didn't want my network to solely look like me, not in terms of physically. You know, Black is not a monolith. There's so many intersectionality. So even if I had solely a Black network, it wouldn't just be one thing, but really looking at intergeneration, looking at cross-cultural, looking at not just domestic, but you know, cross-provincial, maybe national, international, really looking at how I can deepen my understandings on so many different things, whether it's socially, culturally, professionally, and that literally translates to your net worth, because how you connect the dots, your outlook, what you bring to the table, maybe the tables that you create, is going to have so much of a long lasting impact than it would if you didn't have that broad understanding. So developing network for me has always been key. And one way that I do that, from university, we started For Brown Girls, and it was we created a safe environment for Black women to exchange on maybe some of the glass ceilings, some of the apprehensions. This is before all the cool terminology came post BLM, but really understanding who we were, where we fit, having just these real conversations, and really connecting. And it's those connections that have literally 8 years ago, I didn't know that those connections would really be the foundation to which I can build and grow a sustainable business. But it's because I was really focusing on the connection itself, and nurturing that connection and having those relationships in real time, versus thinking about like, what can I get out of this conversation or relationship? Because sometimes what you're building today, you're not realizing that you're actually building something. You know what I mean? So that conversation that you have now with a specific individual, that payoff, and payoff not always monetary, but that payoff might happen a year, 2, 3 years down the line. So it's important to kind of have that, live in that discomfort a bit of like having those real conversations, and then seeing how you can nurture those conversations long term, after you've had them.
Yeah, no, that's excellent input. I really love what you said about, you know, bringing your authentic self, and that sort of dovetails with the next question that we had, around, you know, what's the importance of all of these, how we show up to these things. And, you know, being authentic is part of making it sustainable, because to your point, Nicole, if you're pretending to be someone else, you got to keep pretending to keep the relationship going. And we need to show up as our authentic selves for sure. And I want to ask Zahra, could you reflect on the question we have on the screen? I think that we're starting, you know, a lot of the things that have been said so far build toward this. So either, you know, some of your ideas on starting and growing a network, which we've got some good ideas out here, and or, you know, the most meaningful way to succeed is to help others succeed. Is that true in your experiences of networking?
Thanks, Christy. And I'm going to touch on both of them, because the diversity of the network is so important, as we just heard about. Without it, we create an echo chamber. And an echo chamber doesn't bring anything new to us. It just circulates what we're feeding into it, and it all kind of, you bobblehead and say yes. And so having the diversity of thought, of identity based, of professional background or role or team will really expose you to a variety of ideas, perspectives, and inherently go into support how great of a problem solver you are and how much creativity you bring to your work as well. And so in order to venture out, and this part is challenging, it is not easy, and it requires intention and courage to step out of the groups that we feel really comfortable with and are familiar with into groups that we may not be. And so I find curiosity is really what helps me go through, because when I approach anyone with curiosity, genuine curiosity, and inherently openness as well, I usually get it reciprocated the same way. And curiosity goes into even asking questions. So ask the good questions, ask all the questions to really get to know them, their experiences, their obstacles, their triumphs, their aspirations, because as Joanna had mentioned earlier, it brings it down to the human level. All of a sudden, their title, their role, none of it matters. And you're connecting with them as a human. And when we're two humans talking to each other, we'll definitely find a way to relate to each other. And that makes it a lot more valuable, because all of a sudden the managing connections feels less like managing and work, and it feels more like maintaining valuable relationships in your life that are truly meaningful to you, where you're also supporting them as well. The second part of this, the Maya Angelou's quote is what came into mind for me, that they may forget what you said, but will never forget how you made them feel. And bringing that into my networking has brought heart back to it, because when you make those around you feel seen, feel appreciated, valued, you don't have to worry about feeling forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful, lovely. I really love that Maya Angelou quote as well, and so appropriate for this. You know, that, as you say, we gotta get ourselves back from the brink of feeling like this is something I must do and I'm doing it, to really engaging and enjoying the process, for sure, for sure. Joanna and Nicole, anything to add on these two ideas that we've got here and the things that Zahra got us started thinking about?
I can definitely take that on. I love that quote. The most meaningful way to succeed is to help others succeed. And without that philosophy and that mentality of community, I would not be where I am today 1,000%. So I feel that whatever you throw in the universe, you get back. And that's really important in terms of networking and building these connections. An example I want to kind of bring on is last year I started an event called Blaxpo, BLAXPO. I'll put it in the chat. And it was helping forward-thinking companies connect with BIPOC talent. And it's a multi-touch. We're having another one this year and next month, October 14th. And it's to curate a safe environment whereby BIPOC, Black individuals can feel empowered and take ownership of creating and cementing opportunities. So there's a lot of tidbits that we do for our community in terms of providing them with resources, giving examples. We have a matching app similar to a dating app that makes the connections preemptively to the companies based on how you filled out your questionnaire. So those are different icebreakers to kind of bring into the space. How you present yourself. Me, I'm someone that has always been super shy, although I don't come off that way internally. Before I do anything, there's this like little battle that happens, like, okay, I'm showing up. So one thing that I've always kind of done to kind of trick myself is like, make sure that my hair is a statement, make sure that my glasses are a statement, make sure my outfit looks something, because maybe that will be my icebreaker. So if you're really good at something, creative at something, it's how you show up in the room and what is the space that you take up. So there's different cues that you can do that's personal to you, and really coming up with how are you going to maximize your presence in a room, or giving yourself one task, like, okay, I'm going to speak with one individual, learn about one thing, giving yourself that tidbit, because you'd be surprised how many people just want to help. They just want to share a contact. They want to speak your name in rooms that you are not in. So that's like the importance of exchange. And to bring it back to Blaxpo, when I was pitching these companies and really creating these relationships and having these conversations, these were companies that were given to me 1 degree, maybe 2 degree of separation, usually warm transfers. And they were just given to me, right? Because of my network, because they believed in what I wanted to accomplish, because they believed in the mission, the vision. So, and my success is their success, right? So it's really important to kind of look at that like in a circular type of philosophy, in sense that what you do and what you give out is what you're going to receive. And it's important to know that there's a lot of people out there that just want to help, that just want to connect. And thankfully, because of LinkedIn, social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, wherever, not fax machines. However, because of that, like instant connections that we have now, you have this kind of crutch, and I'm using that word very deliberately, but it's a crutch to kind of get out of your own way and make that connection, put it out, close your computer and wait, and hopefully you'll hear a ding back. And it's a numbers game, right? So it's really putting yourself out there and being accountable with how you're harvesting these connections.
I really love that, the idea of your personal brand as being a real asset to how you approach this. And also I love too what you said, Nicole, about it is surprising that, you know, well positioned, and when there's a connection, people are really willing to help you more than you might think. And so it's never a harm to ask, for sure, just as you've said. Joanna, what about you? What have you, you know, how would you approach some of these pieces of question number 3?
Well, and to my sisters here. They've said some really beautiful things. I guess what I would just add is maybe from the perspective of a really busy person, who's been running big organizations for a long time. And when people want to network with me, what's the way that I can make myself more available? Because of course, as Nicole, you've just said, I want to help, but I also, have 500 staff, and, I'm running a big organization. And it reminds me of a wonderful Malaysian friend who basically says, I hate this word networking because your net is my work. And that often can be, right? That being said, like, it's people who've reached out to me to say, you don't know me. I'm really interested in the work that you've been doing. I can imagine you've got a pretty full schedule. I'm willing to show up at your office with your favorite coffee. And if I could just have 30 minutes of your time, I've really got some questions about XYZ. And then those people do that. And then they're really, really good about saying, and so who else should I speak to? Who else can you introduce me to? So it does become my work, but I love to be able to, like, okay, let me make a personal introduction, either by email, or it's just use my name. Say you've spoken to Joanna. She said that I should speak to you, and you continue the snowball. Also, I find a lot of people want to talk to me because they're looking for a job, and they'll kind of hide that fact. Don't hide it. Like, I'm out here, I like what I'm working, or I've been unemployed for a chunk of time, and I'm now really curious about job opportunities in your sector or in your organization. Don't be shy about that. It's okay. We know that people are out there looking for other jobs all the time. And so just be super authentic about it. But just the extent to which you can make it easier for busy people, maybe come to find out a cafe that's right next to their office, or come on in. My dog is refusing to go out for a dog walk. It's so funny. Cricket. That just helps me. But sometimes, I will go wherever if the time allows, or certainly in conferences, it's like, yeah, let's find 30 minutes at lunch. Let's sit together. But just be courageous, knowing that busy people who are committed to helping others will do it no matter what. And they'll also say, actually, I can't do it, but here's my LinkedIn thing, my QR, here's my card, be in touch with me. But I think many young people say, oh, they're too busy, I shouldn't do it. Yeah, don't think that. Go for it, because we all are trying to bring more people into the sector, the organizations. We want succession plans, all that. So be bold.
Love it. Love it. And I want to stick with you, Joanna, just for a second. This is a mentorship network. We are actively involved in making sure that folks who are, coming into the conservation field and wanting to work on world-saving projects like the folks on the phone here are getting some mentorship. So from your own experiences, and again, I'll start with you, Joanna, what are some of the pearls, or what are some things that really stand out for you as, moments when a mentor or a coach really made a difference in what you're doing, or what you were doing? Can you think of a time when that was particularly important?
Yes, I have many pearls. I wish I knew about meditation before the age of 42. I wish I knew about meditation when I was 25. So any of you 25-year-olds, learn the practice. It's that's the kind of groundedness, and to learn that your thoughts are actually not who you are. They are just thoughts. That's how you learn to get out of your own way. And then similarly, all the coaching and mentors who've encouraged me to continue to keep doing the work. We can only be the change we want to see in the world. So it's all the work that we need to continue to do on ourselves. And again, now there's just like the plethora of just incredible podcasts and spaces where folks can actually be doing the work, whether it's, really, doing anti-racism work or decolonization work, or all the kind of self-transformation work for us to be curious and non-judgmental, and to understand how change happens at a deep systems level. Like, all that stuff is accessible to us. And I guess third, so meditate, keep doing the work, and understand that we're always doing self-transformation. And third, it's really the kind of the power of rest, power of play, and the power of sisterhood. And so those three that I have really leaned into heavily.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Zahra, how about you? Do you have a pearl that's immediately accessible in your repertoire of memories that you could share?
There is, and it feels apt because a lot of our conversation has been external facing, for going out and creating a network outside of yourself. And my pearl, in line with where Joanna started, is looking inward. Get to know yourself. Get to know yourself fully and objectively. Claim and own your strengths. We have them. We try to hide them under the veil of humility, and know that claiming your strengths can live alongside being humble as well. Address your weaknesses, get to know those and acknowledge them. Articulate what is important to you, what you believe in, what you're here on this earth for. Envision your future, and be clear about your intentions. The more grounded you are inside, the more ROI you'll absolutely get with all your efforts externally.
Wonderful. Thank you. And bring it home, Nicole. How would you give us, or what example could you give us from some of the mentorship that you've received or coaching that you've received?
I run deep with my entourage. So my entourage is quite expansive. I keep on adding to the team. Some people are my starting five, bench, reserve. I rotate and so forth, depending on what I need. Also, I'm a mother of two young daughters. I'm a wife, matriarch, all these, titles that they throw at you. So there's a lot of balancing in terms of really juggling me and, career, impact, purpose. So one of the pearls that I'm really going through in this state of transition that I'm in right now is surrendering. And that's a huge one. Really just surrendering to the unknown. Doing everything you need to do at the best that you can do it, in the time and bandwidth that you can do it. And knowing that that energy that you put into that said thing, it's going to work out. even if that workout is not exactly what you thought in your head, that workout could be a huge obstacle that came to play that you're like, oh my God, how am I going to put out this fire? It could be, you know, a no that you thought that it was going to be a yes because you've been having the conversations. You really thought you were going to close that deal and it became a no. It's in the yeses and the nos and the uncertainties that really build you for that next thing. So really just surrendering to the moment and surrendering to what you can't control all the time just changes your outlook on how you receive and how you, I guess, digest, you know, any given situation that's thrown at you. And that outlook is really going to propel you to that next opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and let's stay with you, Nicole. We have just a few minutes left, but I am interested in doing a quick lightning round with the panelists on imposter syndrome, because that came up along with, you know, being able to work with, get out there and network with a smaller team. And Joanna, thank you for answering that in the chat. But Nicole, give us a couple sentences on imposter syndrome. What are your thoughts on this specter, which I'm always surprised as a facilitator, moderator, business owner, at how many people have it, even in people in very high places have it. So it seems to be a common thing for sure. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
That's a loaded question.
Sure is. And I'm giving you only a minute or two.
Yeah,
so
it's like a lightning round.
I know.
A lot of it is how I try to kind of combat it, and that's something that, you know, we all struggle with, and some more than others. But how I try to approach it and look at it is that these are like social, societal constructs that have been put on us to tell us whether we belong here or we should do this thing, or this person that does that thing should not look like you or shouldn't dress like you. Or so I try to cancel the noise and just do and show up and know that the room that I'm in, I'm overqualified to be in that room. There is someone that I follow, Vivian Kay, and she has this thing that she does, and she's like, she walks in like Chad. She pretends or she embodies this persona character of a white male, because you know how society has, you know, come about through history. We're not going to get into a history class. Is that, you know, these men are entitled. They just show up and they do the thing, whether it's right or wrong, and they get that job, they get that promotion, they get that lead. And it's just like showing up, you know, do the thing. Know that you're overqualified. Know that you belong in that room, that you can create a table anywhere you want to create a table and who you want to that table. So yeah, I would be to combat this idea of imposter is to kind of do that mind play with yourself. And the more that you give yourself that information, you feed that into your subconscious, it becomes reality. So that fake it till you make it is so true. And it's just really believing in your passion and doubling down on your purpose.
Wonderful. Thank you. We are coming to the top of the hour. Believe it or not, I warned you folks that this would go very quickly, but I would love to give Zahra and Joanna a chance to just say some sort of finishing remarks, and anything that you want to deposit in the imposter syndrome bucket would be welcome as well. So why don't we start with you, Zahra?
Sure. Yeah, imposter syndrome's big. For just the moment, I think the last note I would leave you with is to normalize it. Everyone experiences it. I think the last research said 70%, but it was decades ago. I'm venturing to say it's now over 90%, if not more. And so know that the thoughts that you're having, most probably everyone else around you is having similar thoughts. So just move on, like Nicole said, Thoughts create your feelings, which dictate your actions and your behavior. So change the thoughts, you'll feel differently, and you'll certainly act differently as well.
Ooh, I really like that one. I like the 1, 2, 3 punch. That's very, very helpful. Joanna, last thoughts from you?
And so just to build on both of those, when I'm in a pickle, when I'm really struggling with something, whether it is, about to step onto a stage or respond to a really difficult email or any of those things that are hard, I just ask myself the question, what would love do? Literally can find the answer right there. So I have it as a post-it note often when I'm really dealing with a bunch of stuff. What would love do? And that would be my answer to you guys.
Wonderful. Obviously, folks, we could keep talking to this group of panelists for a very long time throughout the afternoon, but that is bringing us to the top of the hour. So I want to thank the panelists deeply as a member of the committee and an involvee in this process and program. You've given us, I have all kinds of writing all over my page and stars and arrows and all kinds of things coming around. So huge, huge thank you to all of you. This program, as we mentioned at the beginning, has been recorded. Renata's recorded it for us. And so mentees, don't forget, and mentors as well, who are on the call, you can visit the resource section of the Nature Canada Women for Nature group. Should you wish to review these materials and any others that we have already, had going on, webinar 1 and other materials about mentoring. And make sure to keep an eye on your inbox. We will be having our next leadership webinar in October. And our topic is going to be on taking risk and building resilience. So a nice jumping off from where we talked about today and the whole groundedness it takes to build a network and focus and so on. So really wonderful to have everyone here. Thank you all so very much. If you have other questions, issues, things that you'd like to talk to us about, absolutely reach out to Jody Joy or ourselves, and we will be more than happy to consider ideas and requests. So I think we will end it there. Jody, did you want to, because we do have a minute or two left, did you want to just say something from the Nature Canada end to wrap us right up?
Just want to say a big thanks to everyone, to our wonderful guest panelists, to Christy and to Renata, but to all of the participants that took time today to come, to the Women for Nature mentees that are participating in the mentorships, for our Work to Grow interns who have also come and attended today. We hope that you've found this a great experience with lots of wonderful tips and reflections on, and to support you as you move forward in your career and personal lives. So thanks to everyone, and we hope to see you all next month again.
See you next month. Thanks, everyone.